In episode number 422 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the Wonder Woman 1984 delay.
We also have Jim Lee's comments on DC's 5G. Is it happening?
Our comic book highlight this week, as chosen by you, is the Milestone Detective Comics number 1027.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more ever since September 2012.
Ooh.
We're celebrating, and that'd be an 8-year anniversary, right? I am Palace Maven Daniel.
And I am Emperor Palpa Kelli.
For those of you new to the podcast, the way we format the show is first we go through some news. We head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week, which are thank yous to those of you who make the show possible. Head into our comic book review, which is Detective Comics. And finally, we end it with the Brokehead block, which is what Palpa Kelli and I have been doing this week.
Before we go any further, what the hell is a Palace Maven?
It is a Palace Guardian. And this week, we are all guarding the shit out of Ray Fisher. We have come forward like the Spartans that we are, and we'll have that news on here today.
Nice way to deflect. You don't even know what a Palace Maven is either. But for our first piece of news, as we said in the very beginning, Wonder Woman 1984 has been pushed back, this time until Christmas.
We have a quote here from director Patty Jenkins who says, quote, "Because I know how important it is to bring this movie to you on a big screen when all of us can share the experience together, I'm hopeful you won't mind waiting just a little bit longer. With the new date on Christmas Day, we can't wait to spend the holidays with you."
Due to this, DC Comics has pushed back the variants for Wonder Woman 1984, also to December. Makes sense.
The Wall Street Journal, and they released this article that said, pretty much implied that the reason they delayed this film is to give Tenet a longer theatrical run. They're also suspecting that the takings from Tenet have been lower than expected. So they're saying if Tenet isn't bringing in those ticket numbers, then they're going to wait and capitalize on Wonder Woman as much as possible. There's a lot of back and forth right now between fans who want to see it right now and fans who are okay with waiting. There's surveys going out that Warner Brothers is sending out through the A-list program, and I think it's split on both ways. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, first of all, I don't think they're pushing it back so Tenet can make more money. It has two very different audiences. It's not like all the Wonder Woman people are going to see Tenet. Tenet is a difficult movie to understand. But at the same time, I still very much understand how people wouldn't be comfortable going to the theaters right now. So why are you going to release a movie that big when I would say at this point, at least 50% of your audience is not comfortable going out, and they're going to wait until Christmas anyway just to be able to stream it?
Do you think that the hype is going to die down by the time December comes around and Wonder Woman eventually hits theaters?
I don't think so. What I could potentially see is them releasing another trailer in the meantime. So now we have 3 more months, right, until we get it. So yeah, release another trailer, get that hype back up there, and then release it in December. But at the same time, if people are more comfortable in December going, that's the first movie they're going to want to go see. Like, oh, Christmas is here. Yay, let's go see Wonder Woman. And they're going to be rushing to go see that one.
That will be a post-holidays rush type of movie. I know a lot of people are going to do their online shopping this year instead of going out in person to try to get those gifts.
Bless. It's the best thing to come out of 2020.
So true. Yeah, because we are more physical shoppers than anything. We like to go into Target, and we're actually going to start doing our shopping here next month as we try to do each year. But for Wonder Woman, I think it's going to be a great movie to go out as a family into theaters on Christmas or around the holidays into the new year. That's the biggest thing that it has going for it is the holidays. If it were any other time of the year, probably wouldn't really, they'd be more or less just hoping and praying that at that moment, people would be more comfortable with going out. But I think with the holidays hand in hand, I think that'll be a very positive, a huge positive for Warner Brothers.
I definitely agree. As much as I want to see this movie, I don't think it's a bad thing to push it back further. know that there is a select market that would go out and see it right now. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, you're looking at how are you going to make the most money, it's definitely the wise move to hold off just a little bit longer and hope that we can get to a better place in the world before we release it.
What would be your message to those who are saying, I don't intend to go in the theaters at any point, anytime soon, maybe a year from now, just release this for video on demand or on HBO Max, as opposed to the crowd that's saying, I'm willing to wait to see it in theaters as intended?
I have to write a message to both of them at the same time?
Well, I mean, mainly to the people that want to see this at home, are willing to pay the premium price to be able to see it right now. The ones that are excited and hyped to just see Wonder Woman because they had no intention anyway to go to the theaters within the next year.
I'm going to tell you what I would do if I were them. I'd release it in theaters for maybe the first week or two and then release it for premium price online. And yeah, you're seeing it 2 weeks later and you potentially had it all spoiled, right? But you still have the opportunity to rent it at home to see it now, but definitely give those that are wanting to go to the theaters the ample opportunity to see it first.
People now think that because Wonder Woman is so close to Dune, that Dune is going to be pushed back so that Warner Brothers doesn't have two competing, well, not necessarily competing, but two of their own films that may possibly leech off of each other, that they'll probably release Wonder Woman, have that be the December 10th pole film, and then push Dune to early next year.
Maybe. Again, I don't think that it's the same market for both movies. I don't even know what Dune is. And if you are someone who's going to the theaters, you're going to go see Wonder Woman and then you're going to go see Dune on another day because you're okay going into the theaters. The theaters aren't very busy right now, so it's almost even a better experience than it was because there are so many safety features like we talked about 2 episodes ago, I believe. And I just don't see them pulling away from each other because it's not like it was before where there were so many options or you didn't have the opportunity to go out and see these movies. Like if it's there, the opportunity is there. I feel just more so than it was previously.
There's no winning on this one for sure. I don't think that, I know I won't personally pay a premium to get Wonder Woman on demand. I won't do that $30 nonsense, even if it's through HBO Max. When I cover, if they end up doing that and we cover it on the show, I'll be very positive on this decision, but it won't be something that I will pay. I'll instead wait for that $10 rental on Vudu, $4 rental, whatever it may be. And that'll just be what I end up doing at least.
But I will say from myself personally, I will first and foremost choose to go see this in theater and would rather see it in theater. But if they only released it on demand, I know you're saying you wouldn't be willing to pay the $30, but I would probably be willing to. I would go over to my parents' house, right? My parents would want to watch it. We'd pop popcorn. You could come. It would be like 6 people at that point. And that would be an instance when I would be, if it were just me, I'd be like, nah, I'm not paying $30 for this. I'll wait. But if I had several people around me who wanted to see it, yeah, I'd be willing to pay that.
Since we did touch on Dune, I thought this was kind of funny on Twitter, where the the Batman fans, yet anti-Snyder Cut fans, like they're in that camp of, we like this DC universe and not the Snyderverse, where they're kind of still DC fans. Obviously, there's going to be DC fans that don't like Snyder's universe.
So they're teenagers who just want to be against everything.
Well, it's definitely a younger audience that is hyped for the Batman. And I've seen that in the store that I work at and with the customers that I talk to nearly every day. And the younger they are, the more hyped they are for the Batman. Well, when they released both trailers, they compared the Batman's views with the Snyder Cut's views and were bragging about how the Batman YouTube trailer had way more views than the Snyder Cut trailer. Well, recently Dune, which just released a trailer this week, it eclipsed the Batman's views, and now they're saying, well, views aren't everything. They don't count.
God,
and it's like, fuck
not.
You.
Are they Marvel sheep?
They're acting like it.
Oh my God.
Well, see, the Marvel sheep mentality matches that younger generation,
okay,
so there's a
perfect.
correlation right there. But I just thought that was funny, and now I'm rooting even more for Dune. Nothing against the Batman, but I am against that weird fan mentality that they have where they have to compare those two things. And it's like, all right, well, if we're going to compare those two things, let's look at Dune and how great that's going to fucking be. Because I guarantee you, that'll probably end up being a better film than the Batman, just from what we're seeing on both and what we're seeing from both directors.
What's the synopsis of Dune? What's going on?
I don't know if they're based on books. I feel like I've heard that. I know there's the original movie that is now on HBO Max. and there's been like shot comparisons between the two, but I know it is either a reboot of the movie or a cinematic telling of the books that they may or may not be based on. But I know that since they're doing comparison shots between the two movies, it sounds like it's more a remake of that first film.
It's not like Tremors, right? Where like the big old worms are going to come out of the
sandworms, yeah.
Son of a bitch. I hated that show. Yeah, well, because what's his name? Kevin Bacon was in that movie, wasn't he? And I think that was the thing I was most scared of. was Kevin Bacon. But I saw that movie when I was really young. My parents watched it. It was one of those movies that I guess as parents, you don't realize it's going to be as scary for your child as it is, but I was just terrified. That's probably why I hate the desert. I hate tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds scare me, and giant sandworms. So, perfect. Can't see Dune. Now we know.
It's the same director, I believe, as The Arrival that's doing Dune.
Okay.
So that's like one of those things where I got to see anything that he does. I don't know if it's Denny or Dennis. I'm pretty sure it's Denny. Villeneuve is how they're pronouncing it, but they spell it out Villanueve, so I've always been saying it Villanueve.
No, it's Villeneuve.
It might be. Probably is. So we'll be watching Dune. We'll be watching Wonder Woman 1984 eventually. But here's something that also got all of the fans riled up, and we've got a couple of news stories about this, but this one came out to supposedly show that there is no corporate rivalry between Marvel and DC. Pedo perv James Gunn tweeted that Lord Feige paid him a set visit while filming pedo perv James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
How does that make any sense? There's no rivalry, but our biggest rival is here.
It's absolutely, so I know how you feel already. So after many, go ahead and move forward with this one because Pedo Gunn had a lot to say.
Yeah, so many in the movement, of course, accused Pedo James Gunn of bringing Feige on once again to spy on the competition's plans. He tweeted with, quote, "I'm confused by the concept leaking secrets to the other side. I've never heard of anything like this." End quote. Let me pull my robe closer. Ooh.
People immediately said, that sounds like someone who's guilty.
Right. 100%.
Like, I've never heard of this concept of what is a leak. Shut up, Gunn. He got flooded with plot comparisons between Batman vs. Superman and Civil War, which we already know the Russos admitted years ago that they changed the plans for Captain America Secret Serpent Society, whatever it was called, to Civil War because of what was going on with BVS. And then when you break the plots down, you see where there's a lot of weird coincidences between the two, a lot of connections. And then they compare Justice League 1 through 3. Now that we know Snyder's 5-film plan, which had been at Warner Brothers already, this is why they were already filming a lot of these movies after BVS was going into theaters. And they compared those 3 movies with Infinity War and Endgame, which once again had a lot of very similar plot points. I've never seen Infinity War and Endgame, but I've seen those memes, and there's the 5-year gap thing. There's the bit of Wonder Woman trying to protect Lois Lane, Darkseid coming and killing Lois Lane. And I guess in the movie, Thanos comes in and kills Vision, and Wanda's trying to protect her. So there's a lot of these breakdowns. I retweeted it several times. You probably have seen it if you follow us on Twitter. And there's a ton on Instagram too, but they immediately were like, no, don't act like you haven't seen all of these and you don't know what this is about. Clearly, 2 big tentpole films, which are BVS and Justice League, were at some point, it's too coincidental. It just makes no sense that you got, this is the big thing that we believe, and someone somewhere said something, which is where this stuff comes from, and we don't know where, and there's a lot of NDAs happening, but the thing that people think right now is Joss Whedon and Jeff Johns both are the ones who discussed these plans with people over at Disney and Marvel, and that's where a lot of these things got lifted and used in their own films.
In the time that you're talking, I figured out what he meant by this quote. So in this moment, he was who was it, Eddie Murphy meme where he's pointing at his head and he's like, you can't leak secrets to the other side if you're on their side.
I got to make that meme now. That's a great one. Well done.
Hurry, make it before you release the episode.
It is really bizarre that you'd have someone like Feige on there and we're immediately like, Warner Brothers doesn't.
Of all the people, like why Feige?
Exactly.
Nobody invited me to any sets and I'm the Palpa.
We asked the Brocat core out there what they thought about this very weird set visit. And the first reply we got was from Twitter user at Captain K42. He is one of the hosts on the Renegade Pop Culture podcast, who said, quote,
"It's not a rivalry with a capital R. As for Feige visiting the Suicide Squad set, he's friends with James Gunn. That's totally fair game." End quote. No.
I disagree. Strongly disagree.
Right.
It is a rivalry with a capital R. As much as they like to say that there's no weird malice between the two companies, there absolutely is. I mean, these comic companies for years, DC and Marvel, have lifted from one another multiple times. The reason Thanos exists is because of Darkseid in the comic books. And this has always been a thing. And you're telling me, and people immediately were also making the same comparison of, you don't think there's corporate rivalry between Pepsi and Coca-Cola?
Right.
This is the equivalent of that. There's billions of dollars at stake here. You don't think they're going to be looking at what the competition is doing? It absolutely is rivalry, competition, whatever you want to call it, and allowing one of the heads of the other side to visit your set and be in your house, I think is idiotic. It's dumb. And yes, James Gunn was saying, no, you could visit me on set. You know, we could have anyone from Warner Brothers visit me on set when I'm doing Guardians 3. It's like, you think Disney's going to allow that shit?
No.
They're a little bit smarter than Warner Brothers in this case. And I guarantee you they're not going to let you do that. So if Warner Brothers wants to let these snakes up on the set and let more copying happen, that is on them, and they're the ones who are going to be hurting because of this. Us as fans, we're just like, what are you fucking thinking? Why aren't you doing a fucking thing about this? And the way James Gunn is replying and tweeting, that alone right there is a red fucking flag.
I heard that they played a song when Feige stepped on set.
Which one?
Did you? Da na 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 na. Just grade A rivalry song right there.
That is the perfect one. And we also had a series of tweets from, you've heard them several times on the last couple of podcasts. They said the Twitter handle is @menarestillgood, who said, quote, do you want to read this one?
Oh man, I'm going to try my best.
If you need me to take over, let me know. I'm really happy this all got sent in though.
Yeah. Quote, "No, I don't buy it and never did long before the rise of the comic book movie when I was paying 40 cents a comic off the spinner rack. DC and Marvel are natural rivals going back to when Superman swung a car over his head in 1938, when every fly-by-night operator tried to catch that same lightning in a bottle. If there wasn't a rivalry when Will Eisner's Wonder Man wouldn't have been shut down, Toot Sweet or Billy Batson's Captain Marvel would still have a book on the stands with his name on it. No rivalry? Yeah, sure. And as comic book readers before they became billion-dollar men, Gunn, Feige, Whedon, and Johns were part of the unwashed fandom that gaslight now so they know their rivalry is real and needs to be, if not respected, then acknowledged. Rivalry is why Marvel Studios leveraged its IP to get the capital to take over the world. Rivalry is what hit WB between the eyes to wake up to the fact that it owns other characters besides Batman and Superman that fans went to see in live action. Rivalry on the corporate level is also why the Russos changed their original Captain America 3 plans when the BVS announcement set the mainstream on fire. Yeah, there's rivalry. It's not a blood feud, but it exists and is ongoing, so don't try to gaslight fans who know by saying all cape shit is the same cape shit. My apologies for going long, but passion burns bright here." End quote.
And burn brightly, absolutely, Men Are Still Good. And I think they perfectly put forth the idea of, if there weren't comic books, then maybe you'd have some kind of argument of like, well, there's at least some kind of rivalry between the two film studios, but maybe it's not as heated as it normally is. But when you look at the 80-year history of these characters, and they do it time and time again, and they're still doing it to this day. When an event happens on this side, they do something very similar on this side. When a character debuts here, we've got, you know, the unbeatable Gwenpool on the other side as they try to do their own Harley Quinn with Marvel. It's always going to be there as long as these two keep bringing in money and keep attracting those readers, that merchandise, and these movies. this copying is going to happen. The rivalry will be there, and the movies are no exception. There's no reason why the films themselves will be protected from this kind of behavior. There's no reason, and it's not. And we've seen already with 3 movies, 2 on the Marvel side and with Captain America 3.
But it's not rivalry if you're working for the other side.
It's ridiculous. Of course, he's going to say that his money is now Marvel's. He did the one movie for Warner Brothers, and he's back on with Guardians 3, and they're going to be doing other shit on the other side. He's going to stay on that other side, and you bet he's going to defend Lord Feige.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's just totally negligent for Warner Brothers to be like, yeah, this is okay. He can come on the set. And furthermore, even if they didn't know about it, for their director to be tweeting that out and letting fans know, I'm going to tell you at the end of the day, and we weren't going to go see Suicide Squad, but us as fans, I have now lost faith in this entire project if I hadn't before, because what are you doing to protect that? What are you doing to give me something that's going to be genuine? Because now Marvel's just going to crank out something faster and give me the same thing that I'm going to see over here. And it feels like you don't have respect for what you're doing. And that's extremely frustrating as a fan.
I think AT&T and HBO Max need to once again, as I said last week, pull the reins in on Warner Brothers, whoever's making these decisions and letting these things happen. AT&T, in a year from now, I think they're going to have much tighter control on this kind of behavior, this kind of nonsense. Warner Brothers is, I think, a really big part of this problem right now with the company. And AT&T has to be there to address these things. And things like what we've been seeing with Ray Fisher and what Warner Brothers has been doing, more evidence is coming forward on this as Justice League star Ray Fisher has accused WB of burying his claims several weeks back by releasing the news early that Ben Affleck was to return as Batman in the Solo film.
According to Ray, the original plan was to unveil that Ben was going to return at DC Fandom, but after Ray's tweet about the independent investigation, DC released the news early, moving it to a little over an hour after his tweets.
Jason Momoa has come forward in support, saying Warner Brothers came up with made-up news that he was going to play Frosty the Snowman to distract from Ray's accusations. I don't know if you remember that article that came out about it, and now Jason's like, no, I'm not attached to that. What, Frosty? What are you talking about? And that was one of the other instances in which they just put out some news to try to distract from what Ray was putting out there. But at this point, there's been enough movement on this issue, on this case, that I think Warner Brothers, they're making themselves look like clowns by still trying that tactic today, because we're expecting it. We know it. We've been calling it since before. As soon as Ray puts out a huge bit of information, and Jason Momoa came out last week to support Ray Fisher, we were like, all right, what's going to be the hit piece? What's going to be the distraction thing? What are they going to announce to try to take away attention? As of today, they released an article saying that Ray Fisher's only been making all of this known and big because his role was small in The Flash as his cameo. And it just makes it all absolutely more ridiculous and more telling to the fans. We're not that fucking stupid. We're not as dumb as they think that we are, that we're just going to go, all right, well, maybe that's why. Oh, really? This is Frosty the Snowman? That's happening? We don't forget.
I would love to talk to Warner Brothers PR person right now and be like, the fuck is wrong with you?
The same shit. It's the same fucking shit.
I just, and again, I go back to this point of how out of touch are you with the world, with your fans, with Twitter at large, where you think you can get away with these kind of things and that it's not going to come back to bite you in the ass and that you continue to do it after you've been called out on it. Like, we're not just going to forget. And then going back to that, now all your articles, all these things that you're releasing, you've just lost credibility with your fans because they're looking at it and saying, okay, well, you're just releasing this whatever, you're making up whatever to cover up what's going on.
And every time they try to do this, Ray comes forward with more, with support, and with actual truth on what is happening, what kind of game they're playing. And he's the one who showed us the intention of that Ben Affleck news being saved for DC fandom and not something that they were supposed to release early. And I remember a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how it might be because of hype and why they didn't save this for DC fandom to try to build up hype into DC fandom. And now we know the actual answer. It's because of this stuff that was happening, and they're willing to make up stories just to take away attention from this. That tells me also another thing is that there's more than enough truths in all of these accusations, in all of these allegations, enough for Warner Brothers to be very worried.
Another thing that helps confirm this theory is the Snyder Cut trailer that you all dissected for that one part with Jason Momoa and the lyrics.
That's right. Yeah. And the part of Hallelujah, it's talking about truths being told. We did suspect that, yeah, there's many reasons why Hallelujah was chosen. The primary one, from what I've seen, is that it was Autumn's favorite song. But the lyrics are oddly like matching the whole situation that was Justice League, what's going on now. It's really bizarre. And yes, of course, we're going to analyze every bit of
and
this.
The stars and the moon and the not to discredit from the story, because what Warner Brothers is doing, Wonder Brothers, whoever, is really shitty. It's not okay. And I think that hard lessons will be learned for studios because of this situation. I don't think it's going to be let go. I hope it's not let go, because it shouldn't be. And years from now, we're going to have a great documentary or a movie or something about this. But I think it will change the way that studios treat their employees all the way down, everyone who's working for them, the rates that they get. And, you know, as tough as it is for these people in this moment, I think nothing but good will come out of it.
I love that Ray Fisher has also been using his platform to support other actors and people in the industry who have been mistreated, not just in comic book shows and movies. We've seen some of that already with one of the cast members from Daredevil, but people, directors, and many others out there that are really revealing now the behaviors of these studios. Recently, Alfonso Cuarón, I saw his thing of the film with Sandra Bullock that he came out with a few years ago, won a couple of Oscars. He wanted to have Salma Hayek as the leading role, but Warner Brothers expressed that he needed to go with someone else because no one would believe a Mexican astronaut. And that's when he said, that's the point, I should have walked away from the film. And things like this are coming out, and it's bigger than just Zack Snyder's Justice League or what Joss and Jeff and all of these terrible people did. It is now, it's as Ray has been saying, accountability is greater than entertainment. And because Ray and others are coming forward with this, it's giving these other actors and people in the industry the confidence to do the same as well, to, as you said, build a better future for other people in the industry and really just treat your workers better at the end of the day. This is all for the positive.
As you're scrolling through your Twitter feed or Google or whatever, I really encourage you, if you see something released from Warner Brothers, really take a step back and look and say, okay, what else happened today that they're trying to cover up? Because that very much seems to be the direction that they're moving in.
Some more DC news this week. While DC moved forward with September 19th's Batman Day, they've chosen not to print any Batman Day comic books for the event like in previous years.
They said, quote, due to the ongoing global health crisis, this year's Batman Day will differ from our past blowout celebrations. As with many recent events, we have pulled back from the physical elements of Batman Day, which is why there are no printed comic books for Batman Day 2020, end quote.
DC's Batman Day this year has virtual runs, but it also includes several quote-unquote physical elements, as they call it, such as Batman Day-themed displays at Walmart, Target, and Hot Topic, new products from Lego, Spin Master, Funko, and a line of t-shirts and hoodies from Uniqlo in Japan.
I do like Uniqlo.
Yeah, Uniqlo's all right.
It's all right.
I looked at their shirts. They're not bad. There was one Joker one that it's abstract art that I thought was kind of cool. I doubt they'll be at Disney Springs because it's the rivalry and the fucking competition.
Or you can just order it online.
But people to forget too, and people that are like, yeah, right, Daniel, relax. It's like they're the ones that wouldn't allow Uniqlo to have Nintendo themed shirts anymore at the store.
It's true.
Ever since Universal made a deal with Nintendo. So it goes deep. Of course, they're not going to allow these DC shirts at Uniqlo, but you can get them online. While DC was previously charging stores for Batman Day, Catwoman, and Joker masks, they will instead credit shops on a future invoice after they faced criticism over this. Batman Day, I will say from experience, was never nearly as big as Free Comic Book Day. It was a day to celebrate Batman, and it was an excuse for families to come out and support their local comic shop and get a couple of free comic books. But it's not a massive loss to not have these printed books this year. Yes, it's a nice thing. It's a nice way to boost sales a little bit for that Saturday. But I think they're actually kind of right with this one, because this year with the ongoing pandemic, we didn't have a traditional Free Comic Book Day this year, and Batman Day would not have been the exception.
You don't really want that many people flooding your store too, so I totally understand. I will say the one thing that kind of frustrates me is they're sending out these specialized displays into Targets and Walmarts and Hot Topics, but why aren't they doing that into local comic book shops?
I'm guessing it's a part of a bigger type of branding deal where these things were already in place. There's a lot of money at stake, especially with Target and Walmart. You take their stores, multiply their displays by so much, and they make a dedicated time commitment of, yes, we'll carry these products for this period. I'm guessing it's because of the more complicated aspect that goes into it, as opposed to pushing it through UCS or Lunar.
Yeah, but like, who goes to Hot Topic anymore?
Yeah, I know.
Of all things, like Target, Walmart, and Hot Topic.
That's probably a Funko thing, because from what I remember, they're the same people that own Funko. So
okay,
that's
why they're still in business.
Most likely.
One of my favorite memes I saw this week is somebody like pushing a grandma in a wheelchair, and the grandma's like, "Hot Topic used to be like for all the goth kids," and she's like, "Okay, grandma, let's get you back home." I was like, "It's gonna be me."
The last bit of DC news this week, and news overall, the publisher chief creative officer Jim Lee has shot down rumors that the 5G reboot initiative was coming.
Jim Lee said, quote, "There won't be a project called 5G or a big reboot or whatever. We really want to focus on individual titles and organically build up individual characters over the course of the next year," end quote.
So this, I know, brought a lot of positive energy from the longtime readers. I know people, and I'll still say it, we've said it for almost a decade now, that people complain about reboots, number ones, but they work. Now, if you do them very often, if you do them several times a year like Marvel does, where as soon as Black Cat gets to number 8 and it's like, all right, sales are down, throw a new number 1 up there and let's see what happens. They're going to do that with Shang-Chi. They're coming out with like 10 to 20 variants to Shang-Chi. I know Eternals has over 20.
Who's Shang-Chi?
I don't know. It's a Marvel character.
Li Shang?
It's a martial arts.
If it was Li Shang from Mulan, I would pick it up.
I bet you would.
I would. Yes, I would.
As done by Marvel, I doubt it.
Maybe. You don't know me.
Although if anyone can do it, it'd be Marvel. It's all owned by them anyway. But as I was saying, they're going to be doing this. So with the Eternals, they have over 20 or 30 variants for that issue. And as soon as that book stops selling in less than a year, they're going to reboot that to a new number 1. And they do it way too often. Dan DiDio's original plan for DC when he was still with the company is to do it every 5 years to kind of get everything back to a restart point. And every time they did, with DC Rebirth, they did it with New 52. Every time they do these things, the numbers come in, they get a bunch of new readers, and a lot of readers do stay for the long-term haul. And yes, numbers eventually go down, but that's where you as a creative officer and you as someone who's handling these writers and these artists and editorial, you got to make sure that these teams are constantly moving steam ahead without many delays that won't screw up giant plots like Doomsday Clock did.
It's unfortunate because every time, and this is just my feeling and I don't know, but every time Jim Lee releases a quote, it just kind of feels like he's a placeholder. I don't think he knows what's going on. I don't think he has much direction or much say in what's going on. And I don't think he really wants that. I think he was thrown into this role and they're just kind of like, oh, well, just sit here till we can find somebody.
Do you think it's a good thing that they're not starting with a new number 1, that they're instead moving forward with the titles they have and kind of, I don't know. Obviously, they did the 20% cut, 20 to 25% cut. And to me, that all the signs pointed to there being a new number 1 relaunch across the board. And it's probably because there was with this 5G initiative up until DiDio got sacked. So to me, I don't know what their plan is at this point of continue publishing what's already selling and then do new number ones around it, or is there going to be a big tying overarching event that continues throughout next year?
I think right now, with the way the economy is, it's smart not to do a complete reboot, because your goal with the reboot is to get a large number of course, new readers, right? But the same with the movie theater. How many people don't have the means to do that? How many people aren't comfortable going out and doing that? You will still miss out on a large piece of your market by doing that now.
That's true.
The second piece within that is, if you don't have somebody behind this reboot who really has a strong vision for that reboot and is looking, like you said, 5 years in advance, okay, guys, we're going to do this reboot. These are the plans moving forward for the next 5 years, and then we'll reboot again in 5 years when we get to there, right? If there's just somebody saying, make new number ones, that's not a very well-steered ship. And so I don't think that, as of right now, one, with that backing, and two, with the market the way that it is, I don't think now is the right time for a reboot.
Makes a lot of sense, especially as AT&T is settling in on all of the things that it owns now, and they're probably not going to want to set these plans into motion yet until they have a good footing on, as you said, the market right now, and also on what they have in front of them and how much it's costing them. If they do a line-wide reboot, it'll probably be sometime next year, but as Jim was saying, and he seemed really sure of it, it's not going to be anytime soon.
But with that, we do wrap up our news for the week. A whole lot of DC news for us. Surprise!
That's right. But with that, let's head into our Patreon shout-outs of the week.
These are our thank yous to everyone who helps make the show possible. This week we have 4 shout-outs. The first one goes out to Elizabeth on Twitter at EPLifts.
Elizabeth put up an image of the one per store Ice Cream Man quarantine foil variant with the following quote, "One foil copy per store, and my shop owner put it in my box. Why? Because I reader recommended Ice Cream Man every month," end quote.
How amazing.
That one was... It was asked for by a couple of people at my store, and they sent it as a thank you to retailers for ordering the Comics in Quarantine Ice Cream Man issue. It was a one-shot, I believe. So that was another nice way that these publishers are helping the local comic shops.
Our next shout-out goes out to Nick F. on Twitter at Jersey Whisperer.
He's also on Instagram at buds_bros_and_superheroes, which is the name of one of the podcasts that he hosts. I think it's the main one that he's doing right now.
That's awesome. On said podcast, titled Buds, Bros, and Superheroes, he discussed Wonder Woman.
They just dropped this episode, and I'm looking forward to hearing that one. Next shout out this week goes out to Julian W. on Twitter at Kage023 and at Lazy Gaming Guys.
Julian retweeted one of his favorite Bleach openings.
If you're into video games or anime, make sure to follow at Lazy Gaming Guys and at Kage023.
And our last shout out goes out to Christian on Instagram at ChristianLikeTheReligion131.
Christian put up a happy birthday mom post, which I very strongly related to because it was also my mom's birthday very recently. And Leo had an amazing time eating cake several days that week because we did celebrate over a couple of days.
I think that's how,
yeah.
All birthdays are like birthday weeks.
That's right. And so happy birthday to all the moms out there, whether it was this month or any other day.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you so much, Christian, Julian W., Nick F., and Elizabeth for your Patreon support.
If you too would like your shout out, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. For as little as $1 a month equals out to 25 cents an episode. You too can get your shout out every month. You get the podcast early every single week.
Another great way you can support the show is by wearing some merchandise. You can go to thereasonsimbroke.com, click on merch. Daniel just put up 3 new designs.
Make sure to check them out. They are curated designs, 3 all-new original ones as well. You can get masks, mugs, t-shirts, sweaters. Winter's right around the corner. And if you still need, if you're tired of the masks that you're wearing now, check out the ones that we have up on the shop. Once again, at thereasonsimbroke.com.
And now we can move into the next part of our show, which is the comic book highlight as chosen by you.
This week we have Detective Comics number 1027, Written by Peter J. Tomasi, Tom King, Matt Fraction, James Tynion IV, Scott Snyder, and more. Art by John Romita Jr., Emanuela Lupacino, Bill Sienkiewicz, Kevin Nolan, Walter Simonson, and more. With colors by Marcelo Maiolo, Jordi Belair, Chip Zdarsky, Laura Martin, Hi-Fi, and more.
Do you need to breathe? Are you okay?
I'm good.
You need like a little oxygen mask? That was a lot.
And this book was a lot. It is, like my boss keeps saying, it's a fucking trade paperback.
Yeah.
It really is.
It was really, really big. So like we said, this was voted on by you. Daniel puts up a post every single Wednesday of, here's some potential books that we got in that we can review. And this is what was chosen. I didn't get the opportunity to read the whole thing. Like you said, it's giant. There's a whole bunch of stories in there. But I do have two that I really wanted to touch on. What about you?
Yeah, I read over half of these, and they were solid stories. This is just like Detective Comics number 1000, Action Comics 1000, the 80th anniversary specials. They are a celebration of the character. So in this case, yes, it is a celebration of Batman. I guess you can equate it sort of to like an annual or like those previous ones. There are a couple of stories in here that connect with previous material that were set up in plots, like Tom King's, for example, where we saw Old Man, Bruce, and Selina, and that story continues in this, not annual, but in this special in Detective 1027. There's setups for future stories, like that Generation story with the Purple Glove Batman. That's set up in this. Which ones did you end up checking out?
So I did read the Bruce and Selina one because, of course, right? I have to read the Bruce and Selina one. Not as strong as I wanted it to be. I'm just going to be real honest. I didn't like Selina's hair. That was my first problem with it. I'm like, I guess she's old, but she would not cut her hair like this. No. But it was, a story that's kind of passing between the back and the past and the present with Radioactive Man.
Phosphorus?
Yes, Phosphorus. And he tells Batman, you have to fight me without your suit on. And if you put on a suit, then I'm just going to detonate and just like kill a bajillion people.
He's so extra, isn't he? If you don't do this, I'm going to kill everyone.
I'm going to kill all the people. So Batman's fighting him, and the whole time Phosphorus is pretty much like, you realize you're going to get cancer now. Like, I'm going to do the one thing nobody else has done, and I'm going to kill Batman. It's going to be years from now that you're going to die, but you're going to remember me on your deathbed that I was the one who killed you. And Batman's like, but in your life, you're going to remember me. And I'm like, what? And so it's going back and forth. And presumably Batman's on his deathbed and Selina's sitting there with him. But then there was also that random moment where they're like, Wayne Tech has created a lot of great things to help fight cancer so you can live longer. And I was like, so was that when he was younger he could live longer, or is he old now and cured? I was very confused.
I think what that part was saying is that he would have died a lot sooner if it weren't for Wayne Tech. So he almost did live a full life anyway, because both he and Selina they are old in that story. And that's one thing that I think it was alluding to, at least. And I do like that future, even though it's, Batman, Selina, but it's really well told.
You mean because it's Batman, Selina?
No.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But this one was, at least we got an explanation as to how he ended up catching this particular cancer.
Right.
In the previous ones, they more or less just said that he got it and that was it, and it was old age. But here, Tom actually gave a reason and put a story behind it, which was kind of cool. I'm going to eventually read the rest of these. I didn't read the Grant Morrison one because it's Grant Morrison. You either really, really like him or it's not for you, and I'm on that ladder. But I did like Peter J. Tomasi's opening. Anything Peter J. Tomasi does, I have to read, and I enjoyed it. Scott Snyder's, which I believe set up that Endless Winter event that we're getting, that one was more of the relationship and the symbol between Batman, Gotham, and Jim as the bat signal gets lit up. And it's more than just we need help. It means a lot more to the city. And I thought, I love that Scott has such a focus on what Gotham is, almost like a living thing in itself. And I don't think it was a coincidence that he made the villains in that living gargoyles in a way. So he loves doing that. And one of the villains that he created in Death Metal is Gotham City, where Batman put himself into Gotham City and literally is like a talking building.
Oh my God.
Cool shit like that. So I thought that one was really neat.
I tried to read the one by Bendis because there was one by him in there, and there were just so many word bubbles from every Bat family.
That's
and I was
fucking
like,
Bendis.
I just have to stop. So I didn't continue that one. But the other one I did like, and I didn't catch who wrote it, and I should have. But it was very much almost animated series style. I don't know if you came across that one, where every month for forever, Joker has given Batman a birthday present. Randomly, every month for forever, and Batman's like, it's never really my birthday. And, always something crazy, people die, etc., etc. And then it gets to the end of the month, one month, and Batman shows up at GCPD and he's like, Jim, we got a problem. I haven't gotten a birthday present yet this month. And like it's this whole thing. And have you read that one?
No,
so I don't want to
it.
spoil it for you because
Okay.
I did like the ending of it. I thought that it was pretty cool and very much Batman and Joker. So that one was probably my favorite out of the 2.5 that I read.
It's one of those issues where it could have easily been a special or one-off, and they did make it to 1027, 1,000 issues after his first appearance, over 80 years ago now. I think if you're a Batman fan, it's a must-buy because there's so much in here from creators that have... The one that was missing was Paul Dini. I definitely wanted a Paul Dini story in here because he's been so instrumental.
Was he sick?
He must have been busy. He must have been busy. And of course, the late Denny O'Neil, I'm sure he would have been a part of this too, but that would have been a great one.
Isn't that who Tom King dedicated his story to?
Yeah,
okay.
He did. And I'm sure the whole issue, you can even say, because Batman would not be the same without that team up of Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. If you're a Batman fan, you should get this. You should read it. If you are not subscribed to Detective, if you're a casual Batman reader, I don't think you'll take as much out of this issue. You can probably pass on it. That being said, there are several covers, several variants. Greats like Artgerm did a cover on there. So there's tons to collect as well as just a Batman fan, and I was really happy with it overall. But I wouldn't say that this is essential reading to if you're reading Joker War or Detective Comics. Yes, there's that setup to Generations, which I thought was really cool and really neat. But otherwise, these are self-contained stories that are strong for the most part, but are a celebration to Batman and his fans.
I would definitely agree. I haven't particularly kept up with Detective Comics, but there was something for me to take out of this book. So I definitely recommended for myself as well.
So thank you, Brokehead Core, for voting in on this week's comic book highlight. As you mentioned, every Wednesday morning, look out for that poll on Twitter. But let's head into the final segment of today's show. It is what Papa Kelly and I have been doing this week, the Brokehead Block.
This is my favorite part of the whole show because I just get to talk about my palpiness.
You talk about work for 10 minutes.
I do usually talk. I'm not talking about work this week because
right.
I am learning how to separate.
Good.
I believe that it is healthy for me. I have been very invested, and it's bitten me in the ass because now nobody can do anything without me. So, boom, separated.
I'm going to be working on that as my boss goes on vacation for a week. So I'll be the first point of contact as we try not to bug him or call him or do anything to make sure that he enjoys his vacation and doesn't stress out, even though he probably will.
Of course, you do as a boss. It's just what you do.
Absolutely. Leo tonight watched Detective Pikachu for the first time. He's almost 3 years old, and I thought some of these scenes might be a little bit too intense. Some of the Pokemon are hyper-realistic looking, where they could be freaky, kind of like that Greninja scene where they're coming out of the test tubes. Even Mewtwo looks a little weird if you're a 2.5-year-old, so that's another thing. But he very much enjoyed the movie, and now he's got another one on that list that I can show him and that we can both more or less enjoy.
Well, it was interesting. So this all started earlier in the week. You've been playing some of your MLB The Show and gave him a controller, and he enjoyed, quote unquote, playing that with you. So then this afternoon, he brought me the PS4 controller and wanted me to play. And I was like, Mommy can't play that game. So we turned on Let's Go Pikachu because I was like, I can play this. We can put it up on the TV, right? You just put the switch in the dock. And so I had one little controller and he had the other. Very difficult, by the way, because they make you choose one whatever stick, Joy-Con, whatever.
Yeah, Joy-Con.
They make you choose one or the other if you don't have it hooked into the little controller thing. And only my left hand can use the joystick and only my right hand can click buttons.
Okay.
And so, but you only have one Joy-Con. So you have to move and click buttons with one hand.
Oh, I see. Because he had the other one, or?
Well, because the way that it worked, because it wasn't hooked up in like freestanding controller, they made me choose one Joy-Con. I could only choose one. So
Okay.
Leo had the other one and I had the one, and I kept having to like switch hands to do things. It was very weird. But the good thing about that is every time Leo shook the controller, a like friend trainer would show up and like release another Pokemon. And so I was fighting Giovanni with 2 Pokemons, and I'm like, take this, bitch. Yeah.
Had Giovanni done that, though, you would have been Pikachu faced.
I would have been that Pikachu meme, like, oh, why are you doing this, Giovanni? Giovanni actually wasn't that hard. But anyway, we beat Giovanni in Silphco. Fucking hated Silphco. It was the worst thing of my life. But now I can move on with my life and fight Sabrina, which will also be the worst thing of my life.
That's been kind of cool that Leo can kind of more or less watch and sort of participate in the gaming a little bit. I didn't think that a baseball game would be something that would hold his attention, but it definitely did. And I don't know, maybe I'll give that a shot sometime this weekend when I get a little bit more time to play MLB The Show. So that might be fun with him. But you yourself are also going to go on a little break and vacation too.
I am. I'm very excited. I have a friend who is having a baby shower with her family up in New York State. So not the city, nowhere near the city, but up in New York State. And she invited me months ago, and I was like, I can't go. It's too expensive. And then there were all the quarantines and all these kind of things. Well, when they lifted the quarantine, when you come back, I said, let me just look and see. And I found a round trip flight for $56. And I was like, there's no reason that I shouldn't at that point, right? Because I'm not having to pay for a hotel, right? I'm staying in her family's home. There's just going to be food. I'm literally not going to have to pay for anything once I get up there. They're going to drive me. They're all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, free vacation. This will be great. But then I found out because I picked the cheap airline, I don't get a carry-on for free. So I had to go out and buy a bag that's within the dimensions of what's considered a personal bag. And I'm having to roll up my stuff like feng shui style or whatever it's called and fit it all in this tiny bag so that I can go, because I'm not the paying for the baggage is more expensive than the flight was.
That's insane.
If
That's
I
crazy.
bring a carry-on, it's $41 each way, and the flight was $25 each way. So I was like, no. And my friend is like, well, good luck trying to fit it in a personal bag. I'm like, oh, I'm fitting it in a personal bag. I even considered flying up and buying clothes. Like,
That's probably, yeah.
Screw it, right? So anyway, that's what my weekend will be.
You could have even bought yourself clothes from Target, gotten the free shipping, and shipped it to someplace up there, and it probably would have been cheaper too.
It probably would have been. But anyway, I got a nice size bag. Everything's going to fit in it. I still have a lot of space, and I only have like a pair of jeans and a shirt left to pack. So
that's awesome. Very well-deserved break. I think that's going to be awesome for you. And then Leo and I will have that great bonding this weekend, and we'll pay a visit to Abuelo y Abuela, and I'm sure they'll have...
Every day, all day.
Well, some of those days I work like that weird mid-shift or early shift, so I don't know about those, but definitely not on Sunday. But I think you'll be back by then.
Yeah, I'll be back. You'll really only have them like 2.5 days without me.
It's going to be fun, though. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. I'm very excited too. It'll be nice just to get away. My friend is so excited. Of course, we're like 30-year-old woman, right? Like we're old now. And she's like, do you want to share a room like sleepover style? And I'm like, fuck yes, I do. Like, this is just what you do when you're 30. You relive those 12-year-old days.
And it's got to be like at sleepovers where you're not comfortable sleeping and not your room or with someone else's house.
It's got to be perfect. I thought you were going to say like sexy pillow fights, because I guess that's what what women do.
According to movies from the 90s, right?
Yes. Every movie in the 90s.
Anything else for you this week? It was mainly uneventful as we kind of prepped. I mean, all the news this week was great, and I'm really happy for that. But as far as our personal lives, I don't think we had anything too crazy happen, which is fine. I'm okay with okay.
I am okay. I managed to get through the week. It wasn't anything out of left field, and I just gotta make it until tomorrow.
I know the last couple of weeks I said shipment was late. This week it was on time, so
Perfect.
More of a regular, normal type of week. So on that end, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's a positive, and I think that's it for this week.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke, at Kelli, spelled with an I.
For a link on everywhere you can find us, head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com. But otherwise, I've been Palace Maven Daniel.
And I still don't know what that is.
And Broke at Core,
all will be well.
So Brian's wife brought up a really good question, and I tried to make a mental note of it, but now that I remember, what are our plans for Halloween this year with Leo? Normally, we take him to one of these shopping centers where they're doing trick-or-treating. I know last year we went to the local town and they were doing like these lines and trick-or-treating and he enjoyed it. I don't think they're going to be doing any of that this year.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because, like, a neighbor a few houses down rolled down the street in their car today and saw Leo outside, and she's like, bring him to my house for Halloween. I'm going to have all the candy. And I was like, okay, so I guess he's trick-or-treating around the neighborhood.
I'm curious what other Brocat Core members are going to do or if they're going. I know with the locals here in Orlando, Florida, there's Universal's Halloween Bash or whatever they're doing, Halloween Horror Nights, and they are actually going to be doing it this year. I know Disney canceled theirs, but Universal will be doing theirs, and from the sounds of it, the locals are going to be out there for it.
I mean, it's Florida. We just go out. My biggest concern is, what is Leo going to dress up as?
It's a good question.
That's the most important, because he still got his Steve from Blue's Clues costume, which would be really cute. But then I could also make him a rider costume from Paw Patrol. He would be a really cute rider. Or Diego from Go Diego Go.
He'd be a perfect Diego.
I'm so glad we're done with Diego. I could not do any more of that show.